We're diving into some fascinating research today that revolves around a bacterium you've definitely heard of, but probably for the wrong reason.
Right.
We're talking about Chlamydia pneumonia, or CPN. And just to be clear from the top, no, this has nothing to do with the SDI.
It's a really common misconception. CPN is actually a respiratory bug.
Mm.
It causes things like sinus infections, pneumonia. It's incredibly common.
But here's the hook for our deep dive today. We've got a stack of data, everything from a huge Taiwanese study to brand new 2026 findings, and they all point to a wild idea. Could this common cold bug be a major trigger for Alzheimer's disease?
It's a theory called the infectious etiology hypothesis.
Yeah.
And the core idea is that Alzheimer's isn't just, random decay. It might actually be the brain's specific response to an invader.
That's a huge concept. So let's break that down. How does a germ that's in your lungs end up causing damage in your brain? That feels like a massive leap.
It's all about what they call the Trojan horse mechanism. The thinking is that CPN gets in through your nose, travels up the olfactory nerve.
Which is basically a direct highway to the brain.
Exactly. Or it infects your white blood cells, monocytes in the lungs. It essentially hijacks the very cells that are supposed to kill it.
It hides inside them.
It does. And it rides that monocyte right across the blood-brain barrier into the central nervous system. And once it's in there, it kicks off this chronic, low-grade inflammation.
Okay, so that brings us to the famous Alzheimer's plaques, the amyloid-beta. We usually think of that as, brain gunk just piling.
Right, like cellular trash. But this amyloid wave hypothesis completely flips that idea on its head. It suggests that amyloid-beta is actually an antimicrobial peptide.
So it's a shield. The brain is building these plaques on purpose.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Think of it like a spider spinning a web to catch a fly. The plaque is the web, and it's built to trap and neutralize the bacteria.
Wow.
The problem is, if the bug never really leaves, the brain just keeps spinning and spinning that web.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, the defense itself, the shield, starts choking off healthy neurons.
So the plaque isn't the problem, it's the symptom of the problem. That's a major shift in thinking.
It really is. And proving it has been tough. I mean, you can't just biopsy a living person's brain.
Of course not.
Which is why this new Cedars-Sinai study is such a big deal. They looked at the eye.
Ah, because the retina is technically brain tissue, an extension of the central nervous system.
Precisely. They found CPN in the retinas of Alzheimer's patients. And here's the key part. The amount of bacteria they found in the eye directly correlated with the severity of tangles in the brain.
So the eye really is a window. More bugs in the retina meant worse cognitive decline.
It's a powerful link. But looking at the other sources, it's not quite settled science. There's a lot of conflict here.
Right. You have that big Taiwanese study on one hand. They found people who had CPN pneumonia had a 1.6-fold higher risk of Alzheimer's.
And what's more, if those patients were treated for over 15 days with specific antibiotics,
their risk went down.
Exactly, which points towards causation. But then you have this other study by Ring and colleagues. They looked for CPN in the brains of late-onset Alzheimer's patients and found, well, nothing.
Zero. How do you go from some studies finding it in 90% of brains to zero?
It all comes down to methodology. Trying to detect these old, low-level infections in postmortem tissue is just a technical nightmare. So the theory is compelling, but we're not there yet.
Okay, so let's make this practical. If you're listening to this and you're not a doctor, what's the takeaway? Should we be worried every time we get a cough?
Absolutely not. Please do not start demanding antibiotics for a cold.
Right.
But there are things you can do. It all comes back to inflammation.
Right. If the plaques are a response to inflammation, then the goal is to lower your body's overall inflammation.
Yes, the gut-brain axis is so important here. An anti-inflammatory lifestyle, so a Mediterranean diet, regular exercise, it helps your immune system stay balanced so it doesn't overreact.
I also saw a note about vaccines being linked to lowered dementia risk. How does that fit in?
That is such an interesting correlation. Getting vaccines, like for shingles or pneumonia, seems to lower the risk. The theory is that it keeps your immune system trained and fit. A well-trained immune system might just clear out an invader like CPN efficiently without needing to build all those damaging plaques.
So the advice is keep your immune system sharp and inflammation low.
It's the best defense we have right now. It really reframes Alzheimer's from being just a brain disease to being a systemic issue.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. If these amyloid plaques are actually a defense mechanism, a shield to protect us,
then does our current multi-billion-dollar strategy of developing drugs to remove them even make sense?
or should we be hunting the invaders instead? Something for all of us to think about.